Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Today I'm going to be ranking every shield animation in MultiVersus from worst to best. I'll be ranking the shield animations based on the following criteria. How well does this shield animation visually represent the character, and how visually appealing and unique is this animation compared to the other shield animations? With all that being said, let's begin with the ranking. Coming in last is Rick, whose animation is not only visually boring for a character ripe with potential, but the animation just isn't optimized correctly and has an extremely choppy frame rate. I understand the game is shutting down and some things added to the game are likely to be unfinished, and that Player First Games is literally unable to do anything about this, but I'm still going to be judging these animations based on what is present within the game itself, regardless of extenuating circumstances, and despite how much sympathy I have for Player First Games. Joker's animation is either very visually confusing or is also broken. It appears Joker is meant to be holding out his cane seen in his moveset and idle animation, but it does not appear during his shield animation, leading to an extremely awkward looking pose for Joker. While I'm aware that Black Adam is capable of creating his own shields, therefore giving him good reason to be holding out his arms in this fashion, the pose itself completely undermines the power and serious nature of this character. He looks like he's just telling everyone to calm down. Come on guys, game shuts down soon, can't we just stop fighting? Jason also looks incredibly awkward here and looks as though he's shielding his eyes from the sun as opposed to protecting himself. Perhaps the intention here is he's prioritizing protecting his mask, which is a nice detail, but a detail that doesn't save the animation from its undeliberate awkwardness. Batman joins the Awkward Academy with his shield pose and looks as though he is flexing his muscles while fighting off a leg cramp. Robin, the back cramp cream, quick, before Catwoman comes. I will admit that I'm not an expert on every single character within this game, so there is definitely potential for me to be completely wrong within my criticisms here. However, a lot of characters pose themselves as though they are physically creating the shield that is around them, and for characters that are incapable of manifesting a magical shield, it just looks off, and I would have preferred the character to have done something more visually appropriate for the character. Whilst I am amused at how pissed off Shaggy looks, I believe there is a severely missed opportunity to not have his eyes glowing with rage during this animation. Instead, Shaggy just blends in with all the other characters performing a generic block. Lola is another example of a character appearing to be physically creating their shield, and it just looks awkward here. Harley does the exact same thing, but at least her posing is a little less awkward looking. Gizmo also does this pose, but at least looks incredibly cute while doing so. Rendog triumphantly stands his ground, and it is definitely endearing, but I'll admit my lack of love for this original character definitely forms a bias against him. He is extremely cute, I just don't care much for his character. Finn performs a basic block with his sword, but looks really awkward doing so. He doesn't block his face at all and closes his eyes when blocking. Now, I'm no sword expert, but this doesn't seem to be very efficient. I both love and hate Superman's. While I would have preferred a more humorous visual representation of its near indestructibility, I admire how this appears to instead visually show Superman realizing that this fight isn't going to be a cakewalk, and the need for him to block in the first place demonstrates the need for Superman to actually be on guard. It's a very unique and interesting approach to Superman, and I admire the originality and the intent, but I do think an other, albeit more generic direction would have been preferable for this. Nubia performs a very badass looking block that, while very generic, gets a bit of leniency because there's not a whole lot else that makes sense for her to do here. Perhaps a bit of a bias given my love for Raven's character, but she simply looks really badass here and in the game in general. Aristark is in a very similar position to Nubia. What else would she do but block with her sword? I also love how prepared she looks to strike back. There's an offensiveness to her defensive positioning that deserves praise. Apologies for sounding like a broken record, but it would be pretty silly for Wonder Woman to do literally anything else but block with her shield. While I enjoy it doesn't do anything special here and even looks a little awkward, he ranks here simply because he is copying Superman's block, which I think is such a great detail and perfect for this character. Aquaman might just be doing a basic block, but he looks so intimidating while doing so. There's a real command here that really works for his character. Velma showcases a little bit of fear within her block, which I think really works for her character. The kind of monsters she's fighting here is beyond anything she's ever seen. I also think it's a nice touch that she seems to be protecting her glasses. A little research informed me that the Powerpuff Girls are not only stupidly overpowered, but that they are capable of energy projection, meaning them posing in a manner that suggests they themselves are creating the shield around them actually makes sense. The composition here is full of great details. They're covering every angle and even switch positions based on who is the current leader. Steven is quite literally the pioneer for this game's shield mechanic, and I am so glad that they didn't change the appearance of his. The shield animation makes perfect sense for Steven, and while it may not be the most visually interesting, there's no other way you can have it for Steven. I love the confidence displayed from Garnet here. It displays such a strong sense of character that actually makes me want to go and watch Steven Universe. While I have complained about characters who are incapable of creating a shield posing as though they are, I will give Stripe a pass just because of how silly he looks, to the extent that it actually looks like he's trapped in a giant bubble as opposed to conjuring a shield. Samurai Jack is in the same boat as Aquaman, not doing a whole lot special, but just posing in a manner that so perfectly encapsulates his character. I love the way Samurai Jack looks in this game, and this pose is no exception. Jake takes the chair he sits on in his idle animation to protect himself, telling a great visual story of undermining your opponents through comedy, only to have to quickly scramble to protect yourself. While this may not actually be the intention here, I love this little story I crafted for Jake here, and his goofy face always makes me smile. Marceline, much like Jason, also looks like she's shielding herself from the sun, which of course is absolutely brilliant and makes perfect sense here. She's even pulling a hissing face, which is a great touch. You know, for a basketball player that's been thrown into the mix with superheroes and anthropomorphic animals, LeBron has some incredible animations in this game. His shield animation being him trying to maintain possession may be obvious, but it's just perfect, and I seriously adore the dedication to the basketball theme here. Marvin confidently shields himself not behind a sword or a block, but behind a big red button that will probably blow up the entire planet. It demonstrates his obsession and reliance on gadgets, and also his overconfidence. It's a shield animation that really does wonders in representing the character. Damn it, Bugs, why do you always have to rank so highly? The developers have very clearly had a lot of fun with Bugs, and it shows. His angry puffing out of the chest as his block is just so visually humorous to me. I would hate to piss off someone as insanely powerful as Bugs Bunny. Banana Guard trembles in fear while blocking with his spear, and everything just works here. The posing, the facial expression, the subtle shaking of his body, it creates an incredibly charming and cute animation. I have not shied away from admitting my huge bias toward Morty given my love for Rick and Morty, and here is probably no exception. Morty using armor feed to protect himself while he cowers in fear with that adorable expression on his face just demonstrates once again how much care and love was put into Morty. Taz, in order to protect himself, simply shoves his head into his cauldron and then very endearingly peeks out before throwing the cauldron away. I don't really think I need to say much else about this one. Beetlejuice, in perfect Beetlejuice fashion, tells his opponent to wait while he picks his nose. Simply magnificent. And coming in at first place to claim the best shield animation in the game is Tom and Jerry, who I believe simply have the best animation set in this game, because I don't think I dislike a single one of their animations. I love Jerry stepping in to protect a very scared Tom, as though to say, only I get to hurt the cat. And that about does it. Thank you all very, very much for watching, and as always, I invite you to join the discussion. Which ones are your favorites? Which ones are your least favorites? Let me know in the comments below, and until next time, have a bloody good one.